So I'm going to share with you now this simple method that I have used and that I've shared with others, although not exactly in this format, that allows for people to begin to actually practice and experience self-love and all the benefits that come from that. And I wanted it to be something that would be easy for you to remember. And so I designed an acronym that can help you to remember it. So there are 3 steps to this. And this acronym will help you to remember the 3 steps, at least I hope. And the acronym is SLIPS, SLIPS. And it stands, and you can think of it and remember it as when you remember this, you will no longer slip up. Okay, so SLIPS. So SL is for the first step, and that stands for sense of lack. And I'll explain what these mean in just a moment. IP stands for the second step, and that stands for inner process. And stands for the third step, which is stop. So let me talk you through these steps. And then after I've talked you through the steps, then I'll actually guide you through this several times so that you can have a direct experience of it. So the first step, so SL stands for sense of lack. So anytime that you're experiencing a problem, it can be useful then just to notice that actually underneath all of your ideas of what the problem might be, if you really pay close attention, you'll notice that there is a sense of lack. And you might use different words. You might call it a sense of deficiency, a sense that there's something wrong with you, a sense of emptiness, a void, or whatever else. But sense of lack, that's what SL stands for. And this is so important because if you don't recognize this, then you'll be often looking in the wrong direction. Does that make sense? If you don't understand the nature of the problem, you're going to be misunderstanding the problem. And that's going to have you looking in the wrong direction for the solution. And this is what most people are doing most of the time. They think, I have this problem. This problem is that people don't agree with me. And that means that they don't love me and I'm not safe. Or I have this problem. I don't have enough money, and that means that I'm insecure and unsafe. Or they think the problem is that I don't have absolute security when it comes to health, and that means that I'm vulnerable and something bad could happen to me. This is how people think about the problems, if they think about them at all. And this leads people to the wrong answers, right? This leads people to all the kinds of things that I listed off before, right? They think, well, I guess the answer is that I have to work harder. I guess the answer is that I need to make sure other people are happy. I guess the answer is that I need to eat a perfect diet. I guess the answer is that I need to work out more. I guess the answer is that I need to get rich quick. I guess the answer is fill in the blank. They're looking for the wrong answers because they've misunderstood the problem. So the first step is to actually acknowledge the actual nature of the problem. Just notice that underneath it all, what's really driving this is a sense of lack. Because if somebody says to you, I don't agree with you, I think you're wrong. That can't possibly be a problem for you unless you perceive that somehow that is shining a light on some deficiency in you. But think about it. If you know fundamentally you are complete and whole, what difference does it make to you if somebody doesn't agree with you? It might be interesting information, interesting feedback. You might take a look at it and say, well, that's interesting that you don't agree with me. Help me to understand your point of view, because if you have a better point of view, then I'm interested in it. But if instead you feel defensive, if you feel insulted, if you feel belittled, humiliated, whatever it is, then stems from a sense of lack. And so on it goes with any of the kinds of problems that you might be experiencing of the sorts that I described earlier and many more. Does this make sense to you? So that's the first step, is to recognize that the underlying problem is a sense of lack, and that you cannot possibly solve that problem in the ways that you've tried to solve the problem in the past. Because if you really notice that sense of lack, what you're calling a sense of lack, or what I'm calling a sense of lack, it's kind of infinite. I mean, you've tried your whole life to fill that sense of lack, and it's never worked. It's never even made a dent in it. So maybe it's impossible to solve that problem in that way. So just recognize the actual nature of the problem. That's step one. Step two, IP, inner process. So with this step, it's to actually notice what is it that I'm actually experiencing as a problem right now. So there's a sense of lack. The sense of lack is just really, to be honest, it's just some sense. There's just some sensation, feeling, something happening. It's not inherently a problem in and of itself, but it seems to be a problem because of something that I'm doing within myself. So you can actually look and inquire to notice what you're doing. What is that inner process? Now, most people do not, well, first of all, most people don't do the first step. And then the few who will do the first step, very rarely will they do the second step. And yet it's so important. And I'm pointing this out because you might notice that there are some excuses that come up, like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about, inner process. I can't become aware of an inner process. There is no inner process. This is just something that's happening to me. What do you mean that the sensation that I'm calling a sense of lack isn't a problem? It seems like a problem. And so the invitation here really is to slow it down. Because I promise you that everything that you need is there in you. You can discover it, you can see it, but you have to slow it down. I have coached people through this so many times. I know what happens. Oftentimes they'll reject it, they'll resist it, they'll say, I can't, there's nothing there, I don't notice it, I don't know what you're talking about. And as we slow it down more and more, because most people are going a million miles an hour inside and they don't even realize it until we start to slow it down, and then they start to realize just how fast they've been going within themselves. It's no wonder they feel exhausted. So slow it down and start to notice, what is that process? So the process is that there's fundamentally just this sensation, let's say. And then there's whatever is happening so-called objectively. Somebody said something, there's a certain number in a bank account, there's a proposal to eat a certain way, there's something you see in the mirror, there's, other people working overtime and, you don't feel like it. There's all of these different things that are happening, but that none of that is the problem. Those are just facts, if even. But it's what you're doing internally that is producing this problem. It's what you're doing with all of that. So slow it down and notice, what is the internal process? How do I go from not having a problem to having a problem? It has to be something that you're doing inside of yourself. So you just slow it down and observe that. And I can give you some clues. It has usually to do with some story that you're telling yourself about what it means. So there's usually this projection into the future. There's an interpretation of what's happening, giving meaning to it, projecting that into the future and giving meaning to that. And it's not a nice meaning, right? It's like, well, if I don't work extra hours, then other people won't approve of me. They won't like me. And then I'll feel rejected. And then I'll lose my job. And then I'll have no friends. And then I'll feel bad about myself. I'll feel guilty and ashamed. God will probably be upset with me. I'll become homeless. So we project this thing, and it happens so fast. You usually don't notice it, but you can notice it by slowing it down. And you just notice, and along with that, there's this resistance, this tension to the whole thing, builds up the pressure, the sense of there's this growing problem. With every step you take internally, you increase the pressure by increasing the tension. That's what lets you know this is a bigger and bigger problem. The more tension, the more resistance, the more pressure, the bigger the problem seems to be. It becomes a vicious cycle because the more you tense up, the more you seem to have a problem, the more you think about it. The more you think about it and project into the future, the more you tense up, which just round and round it goes. So that's the second step. Third step, S. for stop. Now, stop is really just exactly what it says, but most people misunderstand it because they think that stopping is something they need to do, but it's not true. Stopping means to stop doing, means not doing. Because if you really pay attention to this, what's happening in the second step, you're becoming aware of what you're already doing. So the third step of stopping is not to do more trying to stop what you're already doing. Rather, it's to stop doing what you're doing. Do you understand the difference? It would be like if you're making a fist with one hand, and to stop making the fist is just to release that. But the misunderstanding would be if you're making a fist with one hand and then you try to stop making the fist by using the other hand to pry the first hand open. So you're doing something trying to antagonize the doing that you're already doing. And that's not stopping. That's just adding fuel to the fire. So stopping is a really radical thing that most people misunderstand precisely because it's so radical, because it is so different from what it is that most of us are accustomed to. Because usually when we perceive a problem, we really believe that we have to do something that seems urgent. You know, these people are giving me a certain look. That means that they don't love me, and that means that I'm not safe and my future is in jeopardy. I need to do something. I need to make them like me. I need to make them approve of me. I need to show them that I'm right, whatever the strategy is. And so we're already in the habit of doing. And what I'm proposing with this third step is so completely radically different that most people really struggle with this. It's extraordinarily simple. It is so simple, most people fail to understand. But it really, honestly, truly is exactly what the word suggests, which is to stop.